Night Long Wrestling Podcast with the Enforcer.
I believe they're called enforcers, Gordon. I sell women's shoes.
And the Stallion.
Stallion, baby! I am not what you would call a handsome man.
I'll kick you in the nuts and you'll smile at me and like it.
Oh, nice! Welcome to another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your hosts. He is a Stallion. I am the Enforcer, and I'm trying to find a way to post the live link. So I did it. That's you and I have ran into some troubles lately, so I feel like the troubleshooting on the fly. Hopefully, this will be good to go.
When you say lately, do you mean like the last 30 to 35 years?
Bro, yeah, lately in like the life of Earth.
Okay. Yeah.
Christ era Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So we are 10 years to the day of one of the most iconic WrestleManias of all time. Of course, we're talking about WrestleMania 9.
Nope, that's not it.
Iconic. Oh, WrestleMania 12. Lawrence Taylor.
That's 11. But no, that's not the one.
The one with WrestleMania 24. That's what it is. Of course, we're talking WrestleMania 24.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Snooki.
No, but funny you should say that because WrestleMania 24 did feature Kim Kardashian. So, 10 years to the day, we are talking about WrestleMania 24 in the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast Retro Review. Let it play.
Let's keep going.
Don't hear the words. Killed it.
It's instrumental only, so
that's it. Oh, dude.
Next time we do a WrestleMania retro review, I'll get the lyrics in there for you. With people singing WrestleMania and everything. Yeah.
It'll be 1 year to the day today. Then we'll have to do another WrestleMania 24, and we'll just reload this episode.
Yeah, yeah.
So WrestleMania 24. I don't know about you, but when WrestleMania season comes along, I tend to watch but as many WrestleManias as I can to get myself in the spirit, if you will, of WrestleMania. I do it for all the major pay-per-views, and WrestleMania is no different. I've watched several of them. You and I were discussing which ones we should talk about, and you went to, I think, a random number generator, and it came up with WrestleMania 24.
That's correct, because we could not decide which one to discuss on our WrestleMania retro review. As you had mentioned, I have also watched a good number of WrestleManias on the network, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 over the last month or so, and we just kind of randomly picked one out that we would both watch, as soon as we could before we recorded this. So it was fresh on our minds. So we both went ahead and watched WrestleMania 24 over the last week or so. And now we are ready to discuss WrestleMania 24 from 2008, actually, which is kind of crazy to think that was 10 years ago, I have to say.
Yeah, it's crazy, disappointing, disheartening, saddening, maddening, sad.
Yeah.
A lot of other adjectives that just make it really hurt. What were you doing 10 years ago? Where were you 10 years ago, Joe?
It just doesn't seem like, it's interesting. We talk about sometimes with wrestling, right? I think we were having a conversation with Brian and Kyle, our friends in the group chat like a week or so ago, about when did wrestling kind of maybe stagnate, right? As far as when it felt the same.
Oh yeah. I got deep.
Yeah, it was like around this time, like figuring out which WrestleMania where like they kind of like cosmetically look the same, or similar wrestlers, or kind of the booking kind of got into a similar pattern. And I think that's just kind of how my life has gone the last 10 years. I think, nothing really has changed since 2008, except I'm a little bit older, not any wiser, I have to say. I thought that was supposed to come with the territory, but that didn't happen.
You bought a banging condo.
I did buy a condo. That did happen, but
got a new car?
Yeah, but my last one was totaled, so
You met Hunter and Chance.
I did meet Hunter and Chance. Yeah, they were born. I guess those are good things that
You know,
took.
that's really all we have.
That's
So,
it, man.
Yeah, no, like we were saying, like think of it right now, like the way I've been looking at it, because I've been reflecting a lot. 10 years ago to this day. So from 2018 to 2008 is a 10-year span. And then you look at the just in terms of wrestling, not even in terms of life and technology and all the other shit that's going on. Figure in terms of wrestling from 1995 to 1985. Literally night and day. 1999 to 2000. Like so much has changed. And since 2008, we're pretty much exactly where we were. Except the women, I would say the women's revolution. Really, we wouldn't be anywhere without Ronda Rousey. Stephanie McMahon. That's all that kind of stuff. I would say the biggest thing would be the women's revolution and the WWE network. But the in-ring product, in the WWE at least, is still pretty much the same.
Yeah, a lot of it is, I think, as I was rewatching WrestleMania 24 for the first time in a while, and you look at a lot of the main matches that took place on the card, and there's a lot of guys that are still around and in, main event or in major matches at coming up at WrestleMania 34 in a week. Guys like John Cena, Undertaker, Triple H, Randy Orton, all of these guys are still in big matches 10 years later, some of them even revolving around the titles. So it's, it's interesting, I guess, as far as how that stuff all plays out. But I will say that and we can go through it in more detail. I'm sure we will, but I will say that I watched WrestleMania 24. I remember at the time I enjoyed it as a show. And I watched it again in the last week, and I enjoyed it still now, even though there's some stuff that's kind of, the same as it was back then, but I still enjoyed the show overall. I was able to watch it, and I probably could watch it again, maybe a few months or a year or something from now if I wanted to sit down and watch it, and I wouldn't be bored.
Yeah, I mean, it's no December to dismember, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And while we're talking about pretty good, let's kick it off. WrestleMania 24. The opening match of the night was something that I don't think anybody watching then had any expectations for whatsoever. It was JBL against Finley, not Fit Finley, in a bar fight, Dublin street fight, some sort of street fight is what it was.
A Belfast brawl, actually.
Belfast brawl, fine. The deal is we had just found out that Hornswoggle, little bastard, wasn't Vince McMahon's son, and it turns out he was Finley's son. And then JBL proceeded to beat the holy hell out of him on, I think it was on Raw. Yeah. So this was Finley trying to get his comeuppance. This match was far more enjoyable than it had any right to be, period. Neither JBL, I don't know, how can I really put this politically correctly? JBL needed a brassiere. In this match, was not in the best shape. It was towards the end of his in-ring career. I think maybe 2 years after that, maybe 1 year, whatever it was.
I think so.
And Finley was no spring chicken, but Finley could still work. Finley actually kind of reminds me of like a Yuji Nagata or a Chono in New Japan. They're like 50, 55 years old, but they could still work their kind of match. But these guys made up for their shortcomings in the ring with the plunder, if you will, Dusty Rhodes used to say. They beat each other senseless. They were super stiff on each other. I think somebody got busted open. Was it? I forget who it was. Was there?
I don't remember if they did. Yeah, but it was a very whatever you would call modern day hardcore match where there wasn't like an over the top brutality to it, but they used weapons like trash cans and kendo sticks, and Finley has that shillelagh that he used, and I think the match wasn't bad. It was probably more, like you said, more entertaining than I expected it to be. Probably helped by the fact that it was the opener and the crowd was super into things as WrestleMania was getting started. So, considering how silly the storyline was with the whole Hornswoggle, son angle with Vince and Finley, and I don't really even know or understand how JBL fit into things there, but the match was better than I expected it would be. So it wasn't a terrible way to start the show.
No, not at all. We didn't I just shot my phone. Are we giving star reviews for each match? How do you want to do it? Or do you want to just give an overall for the show?
Well, we can give an overall for the show. Maybe we'll give star ratings for the big matches. Like I think there's 2 title matches right on this show, and then and Michael's Flair. Maybe we can kind of give it for the main ones if you'd like to go that way.
Deal. Oh, and I gotta say, they did a good job of storytelling here because I actually felt bad for Hornswoggle throughout this match. There was a spot when it definitely wasn't planned. JBL had the garbage can from the ring. Hornswoggle wasn't looking, and he wung the entire garbage fill out. I'm caught him right in the face. I actually felt very bad for Hornswoggle.
That was a tough spot. Yeah, that was a tough spot.
Yeah,
and JBL went over, which I was also surprised about too. So, but yeah, the match wasn't bad. Not a bad way to kick off the show, even with a gimmick match like that. But the interesting part was after that match, they went into another gimmick match, sort of, if you will, right? The Money in the Bank ladder match was the second match on the card.
Yeah, the Money in the Bank, and you're right. They usually don't do the back-to-back gimmick matches, but this was Carlito versus Chris Jericho versus CM Punk versus John Morrison versus Mr. Kennedy versus MVP versus Shelton Benjamin. And like you said, this is 8 years ago, and half of these guys, even more than half, are still relevant, even if they're not in WWE. This was, to me, a lot of the, looking back on it, if I didn't just watch it, a lot of the Money in the Bank ladder matches kind of blend together because there's only so many things you could do. And I don't want to say it's an archaic formula, but it's 6 guys on the outside, 2 guys doing spots in the ring. Somebody comes in to save, double ladder tip over, stuff like that. I thought Shelton Benjamin worked his ass off for this match. I thought he was definitely one of the shining stars. CM Punk didn't get as much. This was just before the CM Punk era and all the stuff he done in SmackDown started. So he wasn't, he wasn't as over as he was later in his career. But I thought the match was good for what it was, and my favorite part about it was the creative finish.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. I mean, like you said, when you have these ladder matches that they do, and they put so many guys in the match, I could see. I don't know how it is for the wrestlers, but I could see maybe it being more difficult the more guys you have in it. So the fact that they keep stacking guys in here, and they just kind of a lot of mix and match of different things. And I mean, there was some cool spots in there, like you said. I think Benjamin was a guy like before Kofi Kingston started popularizing all the crazy spots he does in the Rumble. I think Shelton Benjamin used to do a lot of crazy spots in ladder matches. He would run up the ladder and take these crazy bumps and stuff like that. He was kind of known for that. So he did some cool stuff here. Morrison did some cool stuff. I think he did the moonsault off the top to the outside while holding a ladder. I think that was in this match as well.
Yeah, he did. That was absolutely crazy.
They paid off, I think, a storyline that I remember, but I don't remember all the details, which was the Matt Hardy MVP storyline where Hardy had gone out injured and MVP was the U.S. champion. So Hardy had run in during the match when MVP was about to grabbed the briefcase and gave him a twist of fate off the ladder, and the crowd went nuts for that. And I think at the time, I don't remember who I was expecting to win.
Jeff Hardy, because Jeff Hardy had just gotten suspended previous to this. I don't know if you remember.
Okay, maybe that's what it was then. Yeah, because I don't think I was expecting Punk to win, because I remember, I thought back to when I was first watching it, and when Punk won, I was pretty surprised by that. I was pleasantly surprised because I liked CM Punk, but I was surprised that he won. So it was interesting that they went that route, and then he, of course, would go on to win the World Heavyweight Championship, I think around July or August, I think, of that year from Edge on Raw. So that was how that all.
And they do sorry to jump forward, but wasn't like a legacy thing where he never lost the title and they beat him down and took it off him?
Yeah, they had these, I think it was at Unforgiven in September. They had these scramble matches, the 6-man scramble matches. That was kind of a new thing at the time. And he was supposed to defend the title in that. And Legacy took him out backstage, and Orton punted him in the head, and he couldn't actually defend it in that match. And Jericho, who had lost to Shawn in an unsanctioned match earlier in that show, took the spot in that match and ended up winning the title at the end. So
there's ever a question I have, I know at the end, in your heart of hearts, the answer's in there. I will say the finish was cool because it was Jericho. I think it was Jericho. It was Jericho and Punk on the ladder at the end.
It might have been. I can't remember.
Jericho and Punk on the ladder at the end, and Jericho's reaching up, and Punk kicked his leg through the rung, and kind of had him hung up there. And from my recollection, it's the first time I saw anything like that happen in a ladder match. So I thought the finish was inventive, and it was, it's like they always say, like watching a car crash. I think it's a dick comment, but it's going to be a high spot match. Now, the problem with that is when you go back-to-back gimmick matches, you need is it fair to say you would need a buffer match?
Well, you probably want to, you want to do something to kind of go away from the ladders and the weapons and the no DQ stuff. So you'd want to do something different than that, sure.
Well, they sure did, and they went into the Battle of the Brands, which was Batista versus a certain Umanga. As Teddy Long was at the helm of SmackDown, William Regal was there for Monday Night Raw, and they had they each took a professional wrestler representative, and for brand supremacy, if you will. And I don't dislike Batista as much as many people do, and I was actually a big fan of Umanga, and this match was atrocious. It felt like it never got out of first gear. It was disjointed. They were blown spots. The powerbomb to finish the match, Batista won. I was even okay with the powerbomb because it didn't look perfect, because Batista always had the most awkward sit-out powerbomb I've ever seen in my entire life. No matter who he did it to, it was awkward. The finish to this one, he pretty much John Cena'd him, where he had him up for the powerbomb and he lost his balance, and as he fell back, he slammed him down, which is cool because you're kind of playing off of how big Umaga is. But throughout the entire match, there was no heat. The crowd didn't care at all, and they didn't really say anything. Correct me if I'm wrong, about what the winner got, right?
No, I don't think there was really much on the line other than quote unquote bragging rights, I guess. So it was just a situation where each general manager picked a representative from their show, and they went head to head in this match. But I agree with you. I when I watched it back 10 years ago, and when I watched it here last week, the match was a little disappointing, I think, given that these two guys are, Umaga was at a point where he was having good matches with some main event level guys for a little while, and Batista had always been in, title matches for a long while on SmackDown to this point. And it was definitely did not deliver as much as I think people had hoped that it would. There was, I think even towards the end, like you were saying, the crowd was starting to boo Batista a little bit, just for, I don't know if it was maybe the match was just not living up to what they wanted it to be. So, this one kind of fell a little flat. But like you said, Batista won, so I guess SmackDown gets the bragging rights, and that was pretty much that. It was less than 10 minutes at least, and then we moved on to. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to throw this out there. The least they could have done, like the bragging rights match, maybe. Whatever brand won, that's who main evented WrestleMania. Or whatever brand won, that's who got the number 30 pick in the Royal Rumble. Something like that to at least get you emotionally invested. There was just nothing. I don't care about a feud between Teddy Long and William Regal. So
yeah,
hard to cut. Oh, speaking of junk, there was a battle royal on the pre-show, and the winner was going to become number one contender for the bullshit. WWE, make this explicit, for the WWECW World Heavyweight title. I believe Chavo Guerrero was champion at the time, which is fine.
Is it fine with you?
No, Joe. No, it's not fine. Chavo is a very competent wrestler. He was always a good wrestler, but he wouldn't be who I would have to represent my brand. And I sure as hell wouldn't have my champion get pinned in 8 seconds by Kane to have Kane as the new ECW World Heavyweight Champion. That was just the nail. If the coffin wasn't dead and buried already, this was the legitimate final nail in the coffin for ECW.
Yeah, I think that by this point in time for this version of ECW, right, the WWE version of it. By this point, I think it was past the feeling like Heyman was gone, right? So the idea of it maybe being like a breeding ground for younger guys and guys to get put over was kind of not there anymore. As per Chavo Guerrero was the world champion, and it went on to Kane, and then I think guys like Mark Henry would win it at points. So it just really wasn't. It was just kind of there, and Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I guess they're looking for one of those memorable moments that maybe people would think about when they look at the show, but it kind of just makes the title look a little silly, not to mention Chavo himself looking silly. I'm not sure if this was before or after. This was probably before he was losing to Hornswoggle on Raw every week, so I guess he would go on to look even worse. But it was unfortunate. I mean, not that they would have had a great match if they went long, but you know, I don't usually like to see title switches in like 10 seconds. That's kind of a bummer. So, but yeah, like you said, you know, Kane won the Battle Royal before the show started and got this title match, and it lasted about 10 seconds. So that was that.
And then Raven Simone came out from That's So Raven.
Yeah. What? Oh, I'm sorry. You're not a Raven Simone fan?
I think she's on The View now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I hate The View. So yeah, that's enough of that. So next match on the card was the career-threatening match, Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. The deal is Vince McMahon told Ric Flair he's too old and he is forced to retire once he loses his last match. I don't know when that angle started. I want to say around Christmas time. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. It was towards the end of 07 for sure. Because I remember I went to the Royal Rumble in 2008, was at Madison Square Garden, and Flair fought MVP at that show. And I remember that was a career-threatening match. So that was in January. So I'm going to guess it was probably like maybe December-ish that they put that stipulation out there. And, you know, he ended up having to win all of his matches until he lost, and then his career was over.
And that's where Shawn Michaels came in. I think Flair chose Michaels, correct?
Yeah, I think he's, you know, the storyline was he wanted to fight Shawn. Yeah, he wanted to fight Mr. WrestleMania at the biggest show of the year, and if he couldn't do it, then he shouldn't be continuing to wrestle anyway, and stuff like that. And I think at first Shawn was reluctant because Shawn had made the announcement that Flair was going into the Hall of Fame this same weekend at WrestleMania. So he actually went to the Hall of Fame the night before. And kind of through that, Flair challenged him. And then eventually Shawn agreed. And the last show before Mania, they put a little extra heat on it. I think that was with Michaels referring to Flair as Old Yeller, I believe.
He was going to put him out at the pasture.
Yeah. So
this story was, the match was masterful. And to me, I'm not the biggest Shawn Michaels guy.
Yeah.
But that listen, that being said, this to me, as everyone knows, I'm a huge New Japan guy. I'm a Young Buck guy and things like that. But you don't have to have amazing, brutal, crazy spots to have a good match. And at 134 years old, Ric Flair, through the storytelling of the ring, the emotion of the crowd, Michaels, you know, selling his ass off too for him. This was every up and coming professional wrestler should watch this match because it's a story, and it's the athleticism is one part of it, but the other part is how well they worked with each other. There was emotion in the match. There was emotion from the crowd. There were Michaels did a ridiculous a springboard Asai moonsault, and he missed, and he did, like, cut himself in half on the announce table. So there were a couple of bumps like that, but for the most part, it was in the ring. It was old school Ric Flair. It was storytelling. It was peaks and valleys, and you're along for the ride. And Ric Flair even hit a cross body block off the top rope in the classic Ric Flair fashion. Michaels went to the top rope, and Flair crotched him and tossed him into the spot that always happens to Rick. And this match was fantastic. And, you know, I could do without the Flair crying as he was getting pinned. That was a little that kind of ruined it a little for me. Maybe he could sell a little more, but Ric Flair is the most emotional probably guy ever. So 10 thumbs up for me. I thought it was a fantastic match.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was excellent. I mean, excellent for what you would expect out of it, right? I mean, Flair, I don't know exactly how old he was at this point. I'm going to say he was maybe like
34.
I was going to say maybe like 57 or something like that. So I don't know exactly how old he was, but it was around that age. And Michaels, I think, was in his early 40s. So, I mean, given that and Flair's limitations, and after having wrestled for so many years, they had a really good match. I mean, obviously, like you said, it wasn't like a Matt classic in the sense that, they had all these crazy counters and things that were going on, but the story that was, in place leading up to it and in the match and the emotion and Flair, his family was there and everybody kind of, getting, I don't know, whatever mixed emotions, I guess, from people watching it. They were happy, they were sad, they were whatever. But, I think for Flair's last match at that age, you're in the ring with one of the best guys that there's ever been. So I don't know that it could have gone any better for him. So I really thought I think most people would say that they enjoyed it. This is one I guess I would like to hear your match rating for, since it was like a main event level match on this show. What would you give this match as far as a star rating?
Flair was 59, by the way, at times.
Okay, there you
go. Taking bumps I couldn't take right now at 31. This match, I'm going to go 4 1/4.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think I was at like 3 3/4, or maybe I even just go 4 stars even, just to kind of to put that out there. I think it's, it's not 6. Nope. That's not a choosable rating. That's not a real thing. I would go 4 stars even. I think it's, I'd be hard pressed to say it was like 5 stars, a perfect match, just because it's not, just because there's some limitations there. But I think that they did a lot of really, really, really good stuff. And like we said, it's just very, really good story. So I thought it was a really good match. Probably the best match on the card, certainly to this point.
Whoa. Best match on the card.
To this point.
Okay, good. Because the Ashley Massaro, Maria Kanellis versus Beth Phoenix and Melina Playboy Bunny Mania Lumberjill match. Slumber. I don't know. That, my friend, is the best match on the card. I'm not reviewing that, are you?
There's not much to say. I think just to your point, it shows how, to your point earlier, it shows how much women's wrestling has evolved in the last 10 years. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Don't have anything nice. Don't say anything nice to say. Don't say anything at all. I think that's how it is. It was 6 minutes long, which is 1 minute shorter than the Umanga match.
Yeah.
Next, Randy Orton versus John Cena versus Triple H. Randy Orton as champion for the WWE Championship. Snoop Dogg made out with Maria?
Yeah, I thought you said we weren't going to talk about that.
That kind of bothered me a little bit. All right. This match, if I was to tell you Randy Orton, John Cena, and Triple H were in a triple threat match for the title, you would think it probably, true or false, that it would go a little bit longer than 14 minutes.
Yeah, I would think so, considering most of Triple H's matches don't go less than 20. So
and another
I would have expected it to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This match, I thought it was a good match for the sole purpose that it was fast. There wasn't a lot of boring spots. The crowd was very behind Cena at this point. They started out being behind Cena, but I think as the match went on, they kind of turned. And I think now at this point, if you remember watching it, who did you think the favorite was going into this match?
Well, this was at a point where I was still operating under the idea that the winner of the Rumble would go on to win the title at Mania. And I think this might be the start of a run where the guy who won the Rumble didn't always win the title at Mania, or like maybe more often than not, they would lose or not win. So going into it, I thought Cena was going to win just because, he'd come back from the injury and, Orton was the heel champion. And Triple H, Yeah, Triple H didn't really. I don't remember exactly how he got his way in the match, but it just didn't really seem like he needed to be in there. So I thought Cena was going to win, and sure enough, not only did he not win, but he took the pin in the match. So that was a little bit surprising for me, and especially to see that Orton retained. And I think he ended up losing it the next month anyway to Triple H or shortly after. So, but I thought Cena was going to win. I don't know about you.
Yeah, hashtag Cena wins. I didn't really love the ending. I believe Triple H had the pedigree on Cena, had him down for the 1-2-3. Orton comes in and hits him with the punt, and then he pinned Cena, which was strange. I hated the punt. I thought it was terrible, mainly because there's no way to really sell it, and you obviously can't deliver it. So I never liked that spot. I mean, there's a couple times he did it to people, and like he connected, and it looked bad. But this one was kind of whatever, but I guess it made sense because that's why he didn't pin Triple H. He pinned Cena. It was a good match for what it was. I wouldn't go too crazy over. I think I went like 3 1/4 star.
Yeah, and that's what I gave it to. It was I kind of was hoping for a little bit more, but it just didn't really hit hit the next gear, I guess you could say, as it went on. But it was it wasn't bad. I would say 3.25 also. That's what I would give it.
But just for those guys, you expect more. That's really it.
Yeah.
I mean, Celebrity Mania continues. The next match was a no DQ match featuring the undefeated Floyd Money Mayweather against the Big Show. This was again one of those things that kind of, to me, was a little bit more enjoyable than it had any right to be, but it also went a lot longer than it should have. It was pretty much the entire TMT, the Money Team, Floyd's crew beating up on the Big Show. Big Show did take the loss. He took a shot clean to the face with some brass knucks at the end of the match. I think Big Show decimated Floyd's team, and one of his guys had a brass knuckle chain on. Floyd ripped it off, put him on, and he cracked the Big Show pretty fierce in the face, and he got the pin. It was what it was, but I guess they kind of protected the Big Show by having all these guys jump in the entire time. It was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think two things I guess that are interesting. One, I think when the angle started, the intent was that Floyd would be the face and Big Show would be the heel, and they ended up kind of changing that along the way. I'm not sure exactly how it was played out, but I'm pretty sure that Floyd ended up being a guy that was really playing heel right in the whole thing, right? He was using brass knucks. He had all those guys interfering, like you said. So they kind of swapped roles. I'm not sure if the intent was to make Floyd the babyface initially, and they just kind of misread the whole thing, and that wrestling fans would want to cheer this guy. So that was the first part that was interesting. And yeah, I think the deal was it was like pinfall, submission, or knockout. And I think he hit him with the brass knucks, and Big Show couldn't get up after 10.
You're right. He hit him, and then he was waiting like this, and the referee counted down. You're right. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, for what it was entertaining enough. I mean, when you get a celebrity in there, even an athlete like Floyd Mayweather, he's not really a wrestler, right? So I mean, he did okay. I mean, Big Show isn't exactly, again, a guy that makes other people look great in the ring, but for what it was entertaining enough. Probably a little bit longer. He's what?
No Yano. He's
no Yano. Well,
or he's no Falaba.
Not many are. See, that's really just, I'm just going to move on from that. So that's really, that's what that was. I mean, again, for what it was, not a bad match. So the main event of the show, I will say, I didn't expect the SmackDown, the World Heavyweight Championship to main event the show, but it was Edge defending against Undertaker in the main event. So I guess from my perspective, these guys would end up facing each other a lot, I think, over the course of the year with the World Heavyweight title on the line. This was back when Undertaker was still working more than one show a year. But I thought they had a really good match. It was better than I thought it would be. There was good story involved in the match with Edge being able to counter a lot of Undertaker's moves, and his big moves like
the old school walk on the rope like 4 times, I think, and Edge got him each time except for the last one.
Yeah, I think he escaped the choke slam, he escaped the last ride, he escaped the tombstone at various points. So I thought that was really cool. They had a lot of good stuff towards the end of the match with some near falls. I mean, I think this was at a point where people still weren't expecting Undertaker to lose, so I was expecting him to win. But the match was still really, really good. I would probably give it 4.25 stars, so which would make it a match of the night for me. What did you think, I guess, and what would you give it?
I would give it 4 stars myself. I still like Michaels versus Flair better. I will say, to me, this is the last borderline great Undertaker match.
Are you saying that the 2 matches against Michaels the following 2 years were not up to par?
Oh, shit, that was... Okay, let's say aside from Michaels, because then he wrestled at Mania. We're talking about Triple H, right?
Yeah.
Afterwards, Bray.
Well, he had we can go into the whole thing. So 2074 Triple H and 2084 Triple H in the Cell with Michaels as the referee. I think that one was pretty good. He fought Punk at 29, and then he ended up fighting like Brock and Bray and all those guys after that. So, and Shane and stuff like that. So I think
see, for me, I forgot about the Michaels matches, of course, but I think maybe I think Edge just brought out something different in the Undertaker. Edge was able to work a little bit better with him, and when the Undertaker locked in the Hell's Gate submission, with all due respect to the Undertaker, at this point he could still actually get his legs around it, so it looked like a feasible submission. instead of somebody just laying in its nuts. Okay. And that's what it got to be years later. Don't hate. The hot take, hot take. Taker's got bad hips. That's not my fault. Okay. I'm just saying this. Maybe not the last. Let me rephrase that. Not the last great Undertaker match. Maybe the last match where the Undertaker looked great. If that makes it at all any different. He didn't feel, he didn't look quote unquote old in the ring. He could still do. He did the dive over the top rope and he landed it cleanly. It just wasn't. When I watched this match, I could watch this match and not say, okay, that's the guy at the end of his career. Where towards later matches, because of all of his injuries and the beating his body took, you could see in the ring, he wasn't where he used to, where he was at one point. But this year, to me, he was still able to do those spots that he did all the years before.
Yeah, no, I think I remember. I can't remember the last time that he did a dive. I know he did it at 25, and that was when he almost killed himself and landed on the cameraman.
Who was the cameraman again? That missed him.
I don't remember.
It was Snooker's son.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I remember him doing that. But yeah, it's like in recent matches that we've seen from him with Roman and Shane and Bray, like those things haven't really happened. So it's unfortunate. I guess that's just what happens as guys' careers go on. So what would you give this? I have two questions, I guess. One, what would you rate this show 1 to 10? And then second question, part 2, where would you rank it in terms of the WrestleManias all time? You don't have to give an exact ranking from 1 to 34, but maybe like top third, middle third, bottom third, that type of thing. Like where would you put it? So I guess rating 1 to 10, and then where would you rank it?
I would give this show an 8.25. That's an 8 1/4.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
And I would say rank it. I would say I would put it in top 8. Is that fair?
Top 8 WrestleManias. Okay. Yeah. So it's like the top 25%, right? Because there's about 33 WrestleManias. So you're looking at the top quarter.
Yeah.
Of WrestleManias.
It wasn't, and watching it now, it was an easy show to watch. To me, that's really what justifies the score. So what about you? Where would you put it?
I was going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Really? Okay.
Which is still pretty good, right? If you think about it. And as far as where I would rank it, it's probably like in the middle tier for me, but like towards the top of the middle tier. So like if you're looking at there's 33 WrestleManias, it's probably maybe like, the 12th or 13th best or something, like 11, 12, 13th best, somewhere in that range. So I think it's towards the top half of the all-time shows, because there's been some real stinkers. Let's be honest. So I think this one's pretty good.
Maybe if I went back and if I had 7 days in a row and I could watch them all, it'd be a different story. But from the recent ones that I've watched, because I haven't really watched great WrestleManias, to be honest with you, this one stuck out a little bit more to me. But I think between the Michaels match, the Taker match, and the ladder match, I think those two, I think they held up over time, and that's it's kind of tough to do now. So,
yep, no, I'm with you, pal. So yeah, so that's the WrestleMania 24 retro review, 10 years to the day. And I think this is the all night long wrestling podcast. So, Mike, where can everybody find us on the internet?
Wait, are we done? Because I wanted to talk about something.
Oh, you want to talk about Fallah Bahh?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about something.
Okay.
I have a hot take for you.
Right? Oh, I thought we were going to do our advertisements. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
We'll wrap that up in the end. But I want to say something. Maybe it could be a hot take, but I've been watching a lot of WCW NWA lately, as per usual. But I'm getting a little bit later. I'm getting out of the 80s and I'm heading into the 90s. The Black Scorpion was one of the most underrated angles of all time. That's a shoot. I think if done a little bit differently today, I think, because I honestly think an angle like this could get over today and it could be huge. Except, I wouldn't do the Ric Flair at the end of it. I would have like a new wrestler or something like that. But that kind of whodunit, I mean, it was stupid. He was doing like magic tricks and stuff like that. But the crowd was into it, and the crowd didn't turn on it, as corny as it was. I'm a big sucker for mysteries. I'm a big sucker for a little paranormal stuff, a little whodunit mystery, if you will. And I think Sting played his role pretty good. I was a huge fan of the Black Scorpion angle.
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm currently reading Jim Ross's book.
Slobberknocker?
Yes. And he, so he kind of chronicles all the different places that he's worked over the years. And obviously, during that time, he was in NWA, WCW. And the booker who came up with the angle was Ole Anderson.
Same guy who voiced the Black Scorpion.
That is right. That is right. He mentions that. And the one thing I guess I'll mention as far as what he said about the angle, or something that he noted about the angle, was that when Ole booked it, he didn't have anybody in mind for who was actually going to be the Black Scorpion. So there was rumors going around at the time about who it might be, and I think it was played by different people at various points, on different shows and appearances and things like that. And I don't think that Flair wanted to do it, but he just kind of did it because he was a team player at that for whatever it's worth, I guess, at that point in time. So he just kind of did it. I think that was the rough part of it, but I think maybe people were expecting something different. But that was what he mentioned, that when Ole booked it, he didn't have a plan, and Jim Ross said to him, like, well, don't you think you should kind of have an end point for this thing? He's like, no, I'll book whatever I want, and I'll figure it out at the end, type of thing.
Hell yes. Good for you, Ole Anderson. I think I was reading up on it recently too, because I just started Starrcade 90, but I watched all the Clash of the Champions and Halloween Havoc leading up to it. And the hell was I going with this? That son of a monkey's uncle. I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. I started reading up on it. And apparently at the time, one of the big rumors was it was going to turn out to be the Ultimate Warrior.
Yes. Because
they had dropped hints about how, this was a person from Sting's past, and they knew each other in California in '86. And of course, he was teaming born half the Blade Runners with a Jim Hellwig at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm a sucker for the whodunit stuff. I still want to know who's behind GTV. I want to know who beat up Enzo, because I don't think it was Big Cass. Those kind of angles, like even the Enzo angle that they ran a year and a half ago was like a whodunit thing, right? And we were talking about it, we still tuned in, and who cares about Enzo Amore? So I think maybe the people in Fulcrum County Prison, but I think there's something to be said for angles like that where you're debuting a new wrestler, or you have somebody attacking somebody, like when whoever was sending Sting. I think it was a year and a half later they were doing the thing where somebody was sending Sting packages, and they he sent them Cactus Jack and Abdul the Butcher and stuff like that. That stuff is cool. It doesn't have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit, but I'm into stuff like that. And I think it was an angle that, if done better, it could have got a lot more out of it.
Yeah, I'll give you that part. That's for sure. I will definitely give you that.
Well, speaking of a lot more, it's WrestleMania week, Joe. It's March 30th today. WrestleMania, I believe, is April 7th. Before that, so we have WrestleMania 8th. I'm sorry, it's the 8th. WrestleMania, yeah, you're right. WrestleMania is April 8th. NXT TakeOver New Orleans is the 7th. ROH Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor is the 7th. There are countless professional wrestling events going on in New Orleans all next week. The All Night Long Wrestling Podcast will be out in full effect. We're going triple duty, maybe quad duty next week. We're not sure. I don't want to even tease having a special guest next week, because I don't want to jinx us.
Yeah.
But if all goes well, we will have a very, very special guest next week. You'll be able to find out who that's going to be on our Twitter, which you can find at All Night Long WP. You could find us out on Facebook, facebook.com/All Night Long WP. We'll have 3 quick episodes up next week, maybe a 4th one if this interview pans out. We're going to have the WrestleMania preview show, which is probably only going to be about 3 to 4 hours, because it's, how many matches did you say? 73?
Yeah, I think 73.
73 matches for WrestleMania. Yeah. We'll have a bunch of content on it next week. So if you don't already, go to YouTube, click subscribe. We really appreciate it. Apple, iTunes podcast, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Send us dog pics. I don't care, man. Bring it on. We're interactive, And like I said, Twitter at All Night Long WP, Facebook.com/AllNightLongWP, Damage 365 Radio Network. Am I forgetting anything, Joe? I got everything. Right?
I think you got it all, man. Great job as usual.
I want to appreciate you hanging out with us. You, the viewer, you, the listener. Joe, I want to appreciate you. I tell you I appreciate you. As always, we'll be together next week for some NXT and for some Ring of Honor. We're going double duty. I'm setting it up, by the way. TV next to TV. We're going both at the same time, Daddy.
That's a great job by you. Just
21st
classic engineering. Yeah.
It's All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We're tapping out.
Never again is what you saw the time before.